Thanks everyone for joining us on this hot, humid night. I hope you're staying cool. And we are just loving having two guests tonight. One is our state rep, Representative Joseph Pavlov from the Sanilac St. Clair County area. He'll be on with us in a bit. And we also have Matt Wilks with us tonight, and Matt will be sharing a lot about how do you run for school board? Why should you run for school board? How do you run for not the details of how do you run, but he has been doing trainings on this. Golly, Matt probably for a couple of years, and he has been on a school board himself and very active in his community. And we really want to go over a couple things too that are in the news. You probably saw the headlines about the Michigan State University boards, different boards, honestly. Caitlin Buss did an awesome job kind of covering in the Detroit News, covering, why would we silence board members from debate? And you saw the recent headlines about Michigan State University, where two very brave board members were saying, no, they wanted to have a closed door meeting, and they revised their code of ethics requiring their board members to support majority decisions, to act with a duty of loyalty after votes are taken under threat of censure, loss of access to university events, and other sanctions. And Mike Balo and Brema Vassar refused to sign that policy, and rightly so, arguing that it infringes on the rights of officials who are elected directly by Michigan voters. And why am I bringing that up? Is to remind you all, some of you are on boards and you have absolutely every right to have debate in your meetings, and not be under the threat of censure. There's a tendency, the State Board of Education just did that. I think it was in May. The city of Detroit is suing the State Board of Michigan, the State Board of Education, and Nikki Snyder said, "Well, I'm not going to go into your closed door meeting. I want it more transparent. Everyone has a right to know what this is about." And they insisted that she would not be able to speak and that they only are one voice. And to her point, and to others, like, if it's just one voice, why do you need seven of us or nine of us or 12 of us if it's only one voice? So I think a lot of attention is being paid to boards right now. So you all are probably some of you are experiencing some of this and know that you are correct in standing for your right to speak out, your right to have transparency on your boards without the threat of being censured. We'll watch all these things kind of play through and walk through, especially in that State Board of Education one, as to what happens. But and I know even I forgot her name, but Rochester. I know you all know Carol Beth Litkoe, who was censored because she simply wanted to talk about a millage. And she was also courageous and she wrote about it in the Detroit News, and her board didn't like that. But again, we will prevail. We never want to give up on fighting these important battles, because transparency and being able to say and to you're representing people who voted for you. So in all of these three instances, these individuals are absolutely correct, and the law is behind them. So I applaud them for standing up for that. And I think there's a couple of other things that I want you to take note of, because you all have been looking at your sex education advisory boards. And there was an issue that arose, I think it was in St. John's, and they were not going to publish the names of the board members on the Sex Education Advisory Board. Well, that violates the Open Meetings Act. It is an official board, even though it's an advisory board. So bear in mind, as you all are talking about these SEABs, that you absolutely had the right. And Matt can, Matt is an attorney, so he can get into that a little bit more. But, they absolutely are subject to the Open Meeting Act. And they must publish who's on these boards because we've asked you, good people, to go and find out, well, who's on your sex education advisory boards? How often do they meet? How are they selected? When are they making curriculum decisions? Those are all really good questions and things that we've asked you to do. And, this kind of issue came up in St. John's. I hope it's not coming up in your districts, but no, you are in the right for saying no. You do need to share the names of the people on the sex education advisory board. And I think that is plenty for you to absorb right now. These are all articles that we send, and I know we try and just keep you posted on many of these different issues as they happen around the state. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And I know Matt has to leave us, so I am going to have Matt Wilks join us and give us some of his perspective on really kind of looking at what is the deadline to file, for the state, for the school boards locally. And he'll check into give you some tips on recruitment and what it means to serve on a board. Matt created Get Kids Back to School. It's a 501(c)(4 as I believe it's a website, and I think he has a Facebook page, right, Matt?
I have all those things.
Yep. And he also does some really excellent school board candidate trainings. I've been on a couple of them, and we're going to get together and do one in July so that we can be resources to you all here on in this group. So Matt, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I heard the story of Mike and what went on, Mike Balo, who happens to be a friend. And I texted him as this was going on, and I said, did they even read the case? How are you guys not getting legal advice telling you this is something you simply cannot do? And for the group, I want this is the most important message to the group when it comes to that. You will hear things either as a board member or as a prospective board member that may be very, very legally wrong. And what this group provides, CTV, and certainly I'm a resource to those people as well, is if you hear something that sounds wrong, just ask, because it might be wrong. and you really heard that. Eileen talked a lot about SEABs, which we've done a lot of work on. And what we're finding out is that a lot of these organizations, a lot of these boards have been playing fast and loose. They've been pretending like this is not an actual body that is subject to OMA and FOIA. They don't have to tell you who's on it. I think the one I just heard was, well, we don't have to give you the names of the student members.
Right.
And I said, no, sorry, they're still subject to everything else. Even though they're students, they're not allowed. There's no confidentiality. And if they don't want to be confidential, and I can understand why they can't be a part of it. So what my group does is we help people who are interested figure out how to run for and ultimately win a school board race. Okay. So to start from the beginning is when is our last day? School board is not like a partisan race. You do not have a primary. You don't have to collect signatures, and you shouldn't. Your deadline is July 21st at 4 p.m. That's a Tuesday at 4 p.m. July 21st is the last day to file. What I have found is that most people that run, preponderance, 60, 70%, they kind of wait until that period of time. There are some that get out early and they have an issue they want to resolve. Local issues far exceed state issues, okay? When you have a local question, like we're probably going to be involved in a school board race in Taylor. Taylor had a disaster around a school bond that will reverberate in their city for decades. It's so bad. That's what they're going to run on. It's more important than state issues. It's a local issue that really drives people crazy. And Eileen, you mentioned the whole censure thing. I hearken back to 2014 and 16. There was a Wayne Reese enhancement millage, and my board had voted 7-0 to oppose it because we were getting 50 cents on the dollar. It was a bad deal for Northville residents. Well, I wrote an op-ed, and I proceeded to have my board, who was voted this 7-0, try to censure me. Well, you shouldn't have said that stuff. I said, well, we said that stuff. And they just didn't want, they didn't want to be a lightning rod. And they didn't matter. They fought through, and the guy who turned around, and I told the story to Mike, who defended me, was the one liberal guy we had on the board. And he said, man, the First Amendment applies. So much like Mike and Rena Vassar, you have this is an issue that's not a right-left issue. This is an issue that the right and left agree upon. Like, no, there's no silencing. There's no private meetings. You're a public body, and you have to start acting like it. And if you don't act like it, you're going to be writing large checks to people for no reason. So anyway, my group, and I will be sending out, Eileen, to you, and you can share to your group. We say this, the theory we give is this: if you are a type of person that's enthusiastic about schools, okay, if this is something you're passionate about, I have kids in schools, I have grandkids in schools, my kid just got out of school, and you're passionate about it, that's what I'm looking for in a candidate. The rest of the stuff is really easy. How do I run is like a piece of cake, okay? But if you're really interested in it and you're the type of person, like we're recruiting a woman in Northville, we're trying really hard, she's not there yet, but she goes to a lot of school board meetings, and she's really, really interested. And she writes these really elaborate long messages, and they're not particularly partisan. They're kind of down the middle, but she's a perfect school board candidate. Yeah. Because your job as a school board member is to question what you see, and you run the show, and you report to the public. And what you'll hear a lot is, oh, no, your job is just to hire a superintendent, walk away. No, not true. Not true. As we had a function, and we had MASB come out and try to give me that line, and I had heard this 3 or 4 times. I was really not in the mood, and I said, I stopped the guy and I said, can you please tell me in the Michigan compiled laws, where the rights and responsibilities of superintendents are kept? And there was a long pause, and I said, you've been doing this a long time, I thought. He's, yeah, 25 years. I said, well, where are those rules? And everyone in the room knew, because they had been through the Matt Wilk show before. I'm not asking a question that I don't know the answer to. And I said, I'll let you off the hook. It's nowhere. Yeah. Nowhere in a state law does it say superintendents can, shall, must, any of those things. All the responsibilities lie with a board. And if your superintendent isn't doing it, or your school isn't doing it, it's your responsibility. So if that's true, it's your responsibility to ask questions and demand answers. And when people sort of frame it that way, they get a sense, right, left, or center, they get a sense of what they're supposed to do. So we're going to send out something probably pretty soon. Eileen, I'm thinking maybe July 1. I don't know if that's a little too late. I said I happen to send my planning commission meeting, so I can't do the 30th, which I would like to do either July 1 or the 23rd. We'll give it one of those 2 dates. We'll see what people say. And what I like to do is issue education. Okay, so if you are thinking of running for school board, I want you to be equipped with knowledge about how schools operate. That's very important. So when you walk in and say, I want to do this, the most important thing is not to walk into that and say something that legally you cannot do. I had somebody who was running for school board who said to me, I'm going to do this, and we're going to fundraise within our community, and we're wealthy, and we're going to use that to raise teacher salaries. And I said, yeah, one small problem is legally you cannot do that. It's illegal. Yeah. And what? But we got to know that, right? How are school budgets formulated? How is the money spent? How is it tracked? What are the rules around collective bargaining? One of my more popular ones is, what are the rights and roles of a school board member? Right. I think the last one I did was in April, and we talked about OMA and FOIA. And that's gone on to, I've talked to people who have nothing to do with school boards. They want to know about OMA and FOIA because you hear about it so much.
Yes.
And there's a whole group of people that like to run these things like they're running a little corporation that's private. It's not. It's a public body. It's a public body. So I am always open to more people participating. I want to, get people that are interested in protecting the interests of parents and students. That's the focus that I come from.
Matt, what if I don't have a CPA background or I'm not an attorney like you? I have a theater background. I actually personally have a French background. Now, how, how do I think about being on a board? Does that disqualify me? Am I still like, can I learn this stuff?
It
Will I
it
be a good board member?
it absolutely qualifies you. The closest thing we have in this country to citizen governance is right there, is at your township, city councils, school boards, right? We believe very strongly that an average citizen is endowed with all the tools necessary to be an effective governor.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything else you can be educated about. And sometimes the education process is actually good for the public as well, because the public's not educated either. So
Right.
when you say, hey, look, man, I want you to explain to me how this bond works, and you come at it from the perspective of a person that maybe has their limit in financial knowledge is balancing their own checkbook. But you know what? That's a great place to start, because you got to be able to boil it down to something simple. And I say that because I was a board treasurer for 6 years. And part of it was reviewing the check register. And then reviewing the check register twice, we found a 5-figure fraud.
Oh my.
Twice. That the management didn't, like, my director did not have any idea about. One time, a woman spent some time in prison.
Oh my.
Yeah, she had put some checks through when he waited till he was on vacation, rammed some checks through. It goes to me, and I circled it, and I said, question mark? And I'd done that like 3 times in this report, and he answered the first 2 questions. He goes, on the third one, I'll get back to you. I said, okay. And like maybe 2 or 3 days later, we're having an emergency closed session.
Yeah.
What? And then
What motivated you, Matt, to you not only got on your Northville school board, you ended up being the president for a while of the Northville school board. I know your kids were younger.
Yeah,
What motivated you at the time?
It really is a couple of things. One is I had children in the district, and it's not a requirement any longer. Okay, there used to be sort of pre-2019, it was like, you don't have kids in the district, what do you care? And that would be a impediment to you running for office. That's not the case anymore. Now it is, are you passionate about improving schools from any perspective? Okay, I'm a parent, a grandparent, a citizen. It doesn't matter. And my parents are both teachers, so I speak the language. And I am of the very strong belief that I'm not a real big fan of what the unions do, certainly at the top of the house. But I can tell you the rank and file teachers, by and large, bust their butts, and they get nowhere because nobody listens to them. And I will tell you, that was another issue that was a non-right-left issue, is we sat down, and myself and another board member, who she and I have never voted for the same person for any political office ever. And the proposal was to have like a council where the board would meet directly with teachers without administration in the room. And we said, yeah, sure. What a great idea. We can hear directly about what's going wrong. And administration lost it. They were so upset. They wanted nothing to do with this because they had to control the messaging. And that tells you exactly what the problem is. The problem is that there are people that know the answers to those questions. And like one of the topics that you guys have talked about and that we will talk about a lot is science of reading. Okay.
Right.
Do you know who knows that science of reading works? Reading teachers.
Right.
Because they watch it, right? It's like sending a kid out to mow the lawn, and I got a lawnmower that's broken, and he knows it's broken and it's not working, and then finally you admit that it's broken. Well, he knew it a long time ago. These teachers knew a long time ago that Lucy Calkins was wrong. They did, but there was administration that's pushing it, and this is the latest thing, and this is what you're going to do, and we don't want to hear it. And that's not the way our schools should be run. So what I'm looking for is someone passionate about schools, interested in it, willing to dive into it. If you're that person, the rest of it's easy. I can teach you the rest of it. The filing stuff and how to complete your campaign finance, yawn, you'll be done with that in 5 minutes, right? It's the other stuff it's the passion for it that's the difficult part.
And also being able to recruit people around you to help you. I mean, so that it's really hard to do everything by yourself,
Yeah.
but just get 5 people around you that, can just be there, that can help you divvy up the streets, that can help you with a mailing if you need it. There is comfort in numbers, and so if you're not able to run yourself, maybe you can help somebody, who can
Yeah.
run.
Oh yeah. We've had a lot of people who said, hey, I've got this friend and they're thinking about it. What can I tell them? And I'm like, here, this is the whole thing. Have them sit. I've had this a couple times. I record all my training. I've said, hey, here, I'll send you a copy of it. Have them watch it and see if it thinks that it's too much for them. I don't think it is. Look, Republicans often have headwinds in these local races. Okay.
Right.
The unions often pick the people they want to support, and those people ultimately win some of the time. But I will tell you, at the top of the ticket and elsewhere, there is a divide, much like there is in a lot of these other unions, between what the rank and file thinks and what the top of the house thinks. And if you're a person that's passionate about improving schools, teachers will pick up on that. If you're a good listener, and you're listening to them and they're saying, hey, I sat through this meeting and I listened to you talk about the lack of resources you have in this particular area, that's very, very powerful for them. And I was supported by the union in one of my elections. I can't remember which one. Yeah. And because they knew there was going to be an advocate for teachers, because teachers were going to lead to better student results.
Yeah. And what better way to get to know the issues is to sit down probably with some of the teachers in your kids' schools and say, hey, what's some of the biggest issues that you see happening? And so that you are knowledgeable when you're walking to that door, and that, you have heard the perspective of the teachers. I think that's a really great point. Matt, in our chat, someone asked if do you have attorneys assigned to the school board? Are attorneys assigned?
Well, the answer to the attorney represents the district, and sometimes that district includes it means that they're representing you. So it's actually a fascinating discussion point sometimes. And because the body is what is represented, not the individual people, it's often abused.
Right.
I will say this, amongst my, I guess I'll call them alumni. So I've done this in the 22 and the 24, this will be the 26 cycles. You'll often, we have a great sharing mechanism. I just talked to a gentleman yesterday who had a relatively complex question. We kind of talked our way through it. Didn't result in what he wanted. He was hoping for something else, but you got the answer, right? And I tell everybody, look, pick up the phone and call. I might not know the answer, but I might know someone who does know the answer. And there's a lot of school boards out there, and they are looking for different counsel because they're getting the pre-pack answer from some of these bodies. And sometimes they're asking questions and they're not getting good answers in response. So you're starting to see that crack a little bit. We have a very big, as Eileen, I don't know if you've talked about it, we have a very big Supreme Court case coming up. West Virginia versus BPJ is probably, if not Thursday, within the next 2 Thursdays, by the 25th, June the 25th. It's probably going to be the 18th or the 25th, something like that. And it's about the laws in Idaho and West Virginia about transgenders and sports. So you're going to see, depending on how they write the opinion, you might see some very interesting scrambling going on. And the key is that we share this information amongst ourselves, because what we're going to find is that potentially there's changes that have to be made, but we don't know for sure. But yet that there's always, it's a good system. Hey, what are you guys doing? School boards, they run in packs, man. You're doing this? Oh, okay, that's fine. And then you might find someone else is or is not. So
Because that Supreme Court case would set precedent for the nation,
Correct.
is what you're
Correct.
saying. Why it's so important is that all the fights you all have had with, I don't know if you've had some big fights this week or in June because it's Pride Month, but this will be a big decision maker for schools and others. But the issue of boys in school sports and yeah, we'll keep our eyes peeled and get that out to you guys as we see things happening. And Matt as well, if you get some backdoor info to us, that's great.
Yeah,
Um,
we it's interesting to see because there's been a little bit of a lull,
yeah,
but that doesn't mean that's the only way it's going. So we expect there to be some movement one way or the other because school boards were told, it was funny, they were told originally, hey, this is mandated, this is what the law requires.
right.
And people kind of pushed back and said, that's really not how the law works in Michigan. And then the when Mahmood case came out, that was last year's case on books, there was backpedaling like they were cartoon characters
Right.
because what they had said was one thing and it was 100%
Yeah.
reversed by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see the fruits of it. Now people are starting
Mhm.
to pay attention to what's in schools, what's being taught in schools.
Yeah.
And I was working with somebody in a particular district, and they had enough parents complain and say, we're going to
Mhm.
opt our children out of all this content, that they
Good.
finally said, we're taking it all out of the district.
Great.
And that's
Wow.
the result. That's why you're going to be a school board member. That's why you want to do
Yeah.
it.
That's awesome.
And frankly, just to have your voice to the school board, even if you're not a school board member, your voice at that school board meeting. I know it's frustrating, but you are making headways, big headways with the boards, and we so appreciate that. Matt, thanks so much for coming on. I think you gave everyone a taste of what your training will be. He's very knowledgeable, and you'll walk away feeling like I could do this, I can run, or I can help somebody.
My last message is this: you're not alone.
Right.
If you decide to do this, these resources that are here, these people that you're talking to right now,
Yeah.
they will be there when you have a question. They will be
Right.
there when you have an issue. They might even be there when you have, like we did at the state board, when there's an issue and all of a sudden here comes an army of moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and citizens, and they're all going to give the board the what for because they need to hear it. So that's my last message: is you're not alone. If you think you're going to do this alone, it's not like that. This is a team.
I actually have one more message question for you because you're an attorney and I know you're going to answer this in like 60 seconds. Vanessa said, my board will state they have to follow the Elliott Larson
Yes,
bill.
I will. I am very interested to see how broad the West Virginia BPJ case is and whether they make reference to state laws to the contrary.
Right.
Okay. So recall back in the 1950s, there was a federal law that said you must integrate schools. There were state laws to the contrary through much of the South. Basic legal education tells you federal law trumps state law. The state governors at the time, including some pretty rough characters, people that wouldn't go very far today, said, no, we don't have to follow federal law. Our state law trumps their federal law. Sound familiar? That's what you're hearing here too. And it took, in fact, the National Guard to come in some cases. That's not how it works. Elliott Larson does not override the rights provided to young women in particular under Title IX. So I'm waiting for the case to come out. Maybe, Eileen, we'll do a quick one whenever it comes out, or we'll cover it because that's a very important one.
Yep.
The Michigan Board of Education put out a letter in 2016, right after Bostock, before there was any even federal dictate on the issue, purporting to say exactly what they are interpreting it now, which is, I call it the Shania Twain clause. If you wake up and say, man, I feel like a woman, then you're a woman and you get to use the women's locker room and play women's sports and all that. and it's not being well received right now. And the politicians are kind of whistling past the graveyard because they don't want to run on it, but they don't want to irritate their base. Fascinating times.
That's right.
Wow.
We'll be back. We will be back.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Matt.
wonderful. Thanks, ladies. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Matt. Wow. So I know you all are going to anxiously wait and get the date. We'll send it as soon as Matt gives me his calendar. Maybe it's July 1st. It might be a little bit after that. I want to introduce, I believe we have Representative Pavlov with us. Amy?
I'm assuming, so let me just get you run through details and let me just look through
Well,
things quickly.
I'll give you why we asked. Some of you know Representative Joseph Pavlov. He started serving recently on the House of Representatives, January of 2025. But he has been an incredible advocate for students and parents. He himself was a teacher. I learned this for 38 years, a high school educator in Marysville. He represents Sanilac County, St. Clair, parts of St. Clair County. And he serves on why we asked him to speak. You may have remembered he did come to the State Board of Education meeting when we all asked you to come and oppose that curriculum, the health curriculum that they were changing. And he was there. And he serves on the Education and Workforce Committee, House Agricultural Committee, the House Election Integrity Committee, another huge committee to be on right now, as well as the House Families and Veterans Committee. And he graciously said, yeah, sure. I said, would you please come on with us and share with our group what you're doing, what you're seeing, what's happening in Lansing? What do you see coming down the pike on whether it's education and or elections also?
And Eileen, I am not seeing him. I was thinking he was probably on with his staff, but his staff is, so I don't know if you want to reach out to Jedediah. I can go through some other announcements just to see if, I don't know if Mr. Pavlo, he doesn't have his camera on. Jedediah doesn't have his camera on. So whether they might be in the rural boonies and having some
Sure.
While you're doing that, just a quick reminder to everyone, one of the easy ways to find out, like, how do I know if there's any seats open on my school board? There is an awesome link, and we'll include this in our follow-up email to you. It's michigan.gov/vote. Michigan.gov/vote. Here he is. Eileen, I think this is Rep. Pavlo. Hello. And if you go to, okay, you're muted, so we're going to try to unmute you. If you go to michigan.gov/vote, at the very top, there is a link that says your information ballot. There he is. Hi, Rep. Pavlo.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, there you are.
Just
Hooray.
1 second. Michigan.gov/vote. At the very top, there is a link that says your ballot information. If you will tell your neighbors, your friends, bookmark that link. It is the best link you are going to find in state government. And what it does is it does a couple things. One, it allows you to keep an eye on what you have to vote on. It will allow you to generate a sample ballot, michigan.gov/vote. But it also allows you, if you'll enter your personal information, it will tell you what school district you're in, what judicial seat you're in, what et cetera, et cetera. And so that will tell you what school district you're in. And from there, you can do some research. Go to the website, find out, hey, I'm in Concord schools. Who's on the school board? When are they up for election? When are they up for re-election? And just start to, if you're like, man, this is a lot, I do not know what to do, ask a neighbor, because there is more than likely someone who is schooled in this. And together you can knock out a lot. So with that, Eileen, I will hand the microphone back to you.
Great. Well, Representative Pavlov, I did a little bit of introduction of your background, and I discovered that 38 years as a high school teacher. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
And you still have some hair.
I do. My name is pronounced Pavlo. The last V is silent. Pavlo.
Pavlo.
Thank
Yes.
you, sir.
Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
correcting me. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I gave the group kind of a little background on your committees that you're serving on right now.
Uh-huh.
And just share with us. I mean, what drove, you're a new rep, a relatively new representative, And why did you leave nice retirement to just jump into the swamp and take on all these issues? And we appreciate you being a champion for education as well. And you know wherewith you speak. So
Good.
I give you the floor.
Okay. Well, first of all, as far as names are concerned, I have a sister named Eileen and I have a daughter named Amy.
Oh,
So, I feel
yay!
right at home here.
Oh, good.
And Citizens for Traditional Values, you just sound like my kind of people from your title. Um, so why am I here? Actually, I flunked retirement. Uh,
Ah,
I was I had a lot of things to do and places to go and things to do with 18 grandkids and a motorhome but I was just not fulfilled. Something was missing and I really didn't know what it was. I thought I would probably just have to live my life with that, whatever it was here, that emptiness. Well, God brought this opportunity along, and I jumped at it, and now I am happier than I've ever been in my entire life. I think I'm finally doing what God wants me to. So I'm just as happy as a pig in mud.
great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, we're glad you're there for sure. We need champions. Plus your background, not everyone who's on education committees ever, taught kids. They weren't in the classroom. Not that you have to be, but it really lends a lot of great experience when they start bringing up things like, what's best for curriculum? How do children learn? How much money does it take? You're looking at budgets, right? Homeschoolers do it without any money from the state. So do private schools and other nonprofit charter schools. And somehow we're 44th in the nation, and we got to change this. We care about our children, and so share kind of. I know there were some bills that came up last week regarding curriculum and phonics, and what do you see happening right now?
Well, first of all, my two staffers are homeschooled, and they are just top notch.
That's
You
awesome.
can't get any better staffers than I have. I think I have the best in Lansing, and I'll put them up against anyone. Very smart. And I believe parents are the primary educators of their children. It starts there. So these children were taught by their parents. And I think because parents do that, they are the best teachers that there are. The parents of the students that I have were better, and because they had them more than I had them basically 1 hour a day. And there's not a lot that you can do in order to be able to teach and influence in that time. You can do the best you can, but still in all, they live with the parents. They get to see and hear and observe what's going on. So parents are the primary educators of their children.
Mhm.
As far as my background is concerned, I taught mostly high school, but I've also had experience at the university.
Yeah.
Uh, I've had experience in college, community colleges. I've taught chapter one reading and math support at the elementary level. I even taught a class in a prison once,
Oh,
some regional correction center. So I've
yeah.
had lots of unique opportunities in the classroom, and I can say that I enjoyed all of them. And I tried to do more than to teach the subject. I wanted to role model for them what an adult is supposed to act like and how they're supposed to produce. And I think I did that in a lot of cases, not as many as I could have, but I really am confident that I touched a lot of people's lives and the people that have come back to me. And when I was out campaigning, the people that I would knock on their door and they'd say, Mr. Pavlo. Of course, they would recognize me, but I didn't recognize them because they had
Of
grown up.
course.
So it was just amazing. And I thought I can probably still have an impact on people and teach them. And that's what I want to do in Lansing. And I think I'm starting to embark on that.
Great, great. So you're on the Education and Workforce Committee. Are there bills working their way through that committee right now that you want to kind of point out? I know they're making some changes, trying to. I know you don't have the Senate yet to pass everything, but in the State House, there's been some good curriculum changes, I think, made in committee. Um, or other, maybe you're seeing other.
Yeah. Right now we're talking, excuse me, about that letters program, the one that was used in Mississippi in order
Can
to
you
be
say
able
what
to
letters
figure out.
means? Not everybody knows that
Yeah,
acronym.
letters is a program getting back to phonics, which we never should have left in the first place. For some reason, somebody thought whole word learning would be better, and it has just failed us. And so we have generations of people who don't read, don't like to read, don't know how to read. And that's a shame because reading just opens up the mind and the imagination, and it's needed in um, industry and business, but it's just not there. So we never should have got away from phonics in the first place, but that's where we're at right now. It's like I like to equate it to if you take an ocean liner and it leaves New York and it goes out into the ocean, and for some reason that ocean liner has to turn around, it takes forever in order to be able to turn that ocean liner around and get it back to where it was. That's what we're doing right now. We're changing what has happened over the last 20, 25, 30 years, and we're getting back to the basics and what has worked. And where we used to be probably in the top 10 of the nation states, and now we're in the bottom 10. We've actually traded places with Mississippi, who was
Right.
ninth, and now they're up to 49th or something like that. So, yeah, it's going to be a long process. It took them 10 years to do it, but if it doesn't get started now, it's never going to be achieved.
Right. Right. Um, Are there any bills in the or anything you see happening on your other committee? Well, before I leave the education, this organization, this group of people have all been with us since that issue with the State Board of Education and changing or so-called updating the health curriculum guidelines. And we are encouraging everyone to continue to go to their school boards, ask good questions. When are, who's on this board? Because as you know, the state law requires parents and clergy on those sex education advisory boards. And are you hearing anything from others that, are seeing a change in attitude towards like just not just gulping down this new curriculum, hook, line, and sinker, but understanding that these are guidelines, they're not written in stone, and that school districts have the right to ignore them, honestly. And their SEAB has the right to share with the board what the recommendations are.
Mhm. Well, first of all, let me tell you the rest of that story. For the talk that I gave at the State Board of Education, I gave
Yeah,
that same talk to our local school district, Port Huron,
yeah.
and I did not uh, quote my words. I just told it like it was and told them what they need to do, and they want an apology. They're
Uh,
not going to get it, but I stick by everything that I said, just like I did with the State Board of Education. And so, yeah, as a result of that, the superintendent of that school was on my advisory board. I have an educational advisory board because I want to listen to my people. So I've got superintendents, I've got principals, I've got teachers, I've got parents on that advisory board, and I'm continually adding to it. And we meet on a regular basis. And so I
mm,
want to, in addition to my experience, I want to know what's going on out there, and I want to know what the public wants because I want to be a representative of the people. Fortunately, I live in a very conservative district. However, what we found out by going through this process, we found out that for some reason, the leaders of our schools, the leaders of our organizations, some of our nonprofits, the YMCA and things like that are liberals. And it's because they have um, effectively gotten involved like we should have, and we've kind of dropped the ball. And these people are calling the shots, and we need to put a stop to that. So after I spoke to the school board, because they're not going to change and the superintendent is not going to change, we are going to replace the school board members. We're getting people to run who are conservative, and we will do it that way. It's a little harder to turn the ship around,
Yeah.
but
Right.
it's going to be done correctly, and it's going to be done permanently. So that's what we're looking at.
Awesome. How are you recruiting? Are you, because that's exactly the message we're trying to share around the state. There's, you name it, every county has something going on with school boards. How is it, how have you found success in recruiting or talking to people about possibly running? Are you having success in that?
I found about 5 or 6 people that I've talked to. I love people. That's my thing. And I talk to a lot of people, and I always have a cause. I always have a purpose, and I've always been that way. Whether it's been with church, whether it's been
Yeah.
school. I used to do a volleyball tournament here for 17 years in Marysville, and I recruited hundreds of people simply
Yeah.
by talking about it. And some people say that I'm very persuasive. Well, I hope that's true. But yeah, if you don't ask, they're not going to answer. And
Right.
so I've recruited a lot of people, and we are going to change the board. And it's not going to be only Marysville's or Port Huron's board, but it's also going to be Marysville's. And before long, I'm going to bring around the administrators too, because the boards, once we change them, are the ones who hire and keep the
Right.
administrators. So there's going to be a
Right.
reason for them to do their job, and that's what I'm looking for.
Right. That's awesome. That's wonderful. And Amy, if you can, I invite, you can either put it in the chat. We have time for some questions for Representative Pavlo. Pavlo.
Pablo, thank you.
And I want to give the folks on the call a chance to ask you questions as well that might be like come up as they're listening to you. And while you all are thinking of that, please do ask your questions. I'm going to ask one myself. You also are on the elections board
Mhm.
or election committee.
Integrity, yes. Mhm.
How's that going?
Oh my gosh, I'm learning so much. I always suspected that elections could be better, but
Mm,
we bring in people that have done research. We bring in people that have studied the voter files,
yeah,
and they have worked closely figuring out what the Secretary of State has done and has been doing. And I'm convinced that there's room for improvement. And I would like to be able to see that happen. And so I'm in the process of, working with other members of the committee to figure out how we can do that. And
mm,
it should be a given for everybody. Everybody should want a fair election, but it's kind of like scooping up water with your hands. You're not going to get it all, and some of it's going to dribble out. So we're trying to legislate morality here, and it's a challenge because it's like getting
mm,
DEI out of universities. Well, we can do that effectively, but they just change the name and they call it something else. There's a saying that I have that is, in order for evil to triumph, requires only good people to sit back and do nothing. And if people are bound and determined that they're going to be selfish, if they're going to do evil things, if they're going to do selfish things to hurt other people, they're going to figure out a way to do it, and we're just going to need to keep after them until we've exhausted all ways that they can commit that evil. It's a
yeah,
challenge, but I'm up to it. And
yeah.
as far as election integrity is concerned, I love the people that we're working with. They are dedicated. They've got the same goals that I do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and this is an election year, and it is so important. And I just, I can't we with Citizens for Traditional Values, as you know, we're actually about to do our candidate endorsements, and then we'll do voter guides for everyone to put in their churches. And we encourage people to talk to your pastors, and if they don't want to take a voter guide, at least have a voter confirmation drive. Make sure everyone in your church is registered. I kind of assumed everyone was, But apparently there are people that somehow, I don't know how they can't be registered, but there are. But also, it's a very low-key way for the pastor to say, yep, I care about Christians, responsible Christian citizenship. We should have a voter drive. That's the very least we can do. And that at least reminds people to get out and vote.
Mhm.
Um, because this is not a midterm for Michigan. That's a national term. This is Michigan's year. I mean, this is it for the next 4 years. And I appreciate the election integrity is so crucial, right? It's crucial that everyone feels that we have a good election system. And there are many counties doing it well. And there are some counties, as we know, who aren't. And we're gonna clean that up. So that's good.
Absolutely.
We
I
have
have a question. Yeah, can I throw a question in?
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Rep Pavlo, would you give just a picture of what the conversations are like in Lansing among your colleagues when it comes to education? Obviously, we're not asking for privy to information, but just a temperature. Like, are you seeing a lot of concern among colleagues on education? Do you think it needs to be a bigger priority? Would you encourage constituents to contact legislators? Just any insight on that?
That is a very good question, and it fits right in with my style. I believe I believe in this saying, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting the same results. In order to get different results, you need to do something differently. So
Right.
with this letters program, with the program that project that they did in Mississippi, everybody's saying, we should do that. We should do that. Okay. But I like to think of it as education is like a three-legged stool. Okay. If you only have a good program like that, and I've seen these programs come along in my 38 years in education, and they'll be very excited for a couple of years, and everybody will be on board, and then they'll drop off, and then a couple of years later there'll be another program. And the other thing is, I have never known anyone who has gotten paid before they did the job. And so I don't think it's a good idea to train these teachers, give them the money for the training, which they should be getting in university anyway if they're a teacher, and then having them go into the classroom, close their door, because I've heard so many teachers with all the trainings that I've had through the intermediate school district, close the door and say, I'm not going to do that. And nobody ever knows what they do, but it comes out in the results. That's why I believe we have dropped down from the top 10 into the bottom 10. So my thinking is outside of the box.
Okay.
I believe, like I said, parents are the primary educators of their children, so we need to bring them into the equation. And then there's a lot of people who don't know how to parent, and that is indicative of the turmoil and the riots and the things that we're having. I like to think that those people who are out there rioting now were the same ones who were in the grocery cart in the store at the checkout screaming that they wanted something, give me that candy. And the parent caved at that moment and gave it to them. And how much of that happened as a result of their life in order to be able to formulate them. And basically, they turned out to be spoiled brats, and now they're spoiled adults. So getting back to your original question there, what are you doing? When I was on the new school committee for our school here in Marysville, I was an advocate for, I knew students sitting in the seats, they're not necessarily learning. A lot of times they need to be up and around. So I advocated for not even having desks in the school. I thought, I stand all day as a teacher, I can do it. Students should be able to stand all day. And unfortunately, it didn't pass. So they now have seats there. So this thing about seat time, just because a student is in a seat for X number of hours per week and per school year doesn't necessarily mean they're learning. And people learn at different levels. So if somebody learns quicker, why do they still need to stay in that seat and wait for everybody else to catch up with them and be bored and consequently not like education or not like learning? That needs to be dealt with. So yeah, seat time is something that I would like to be able to change.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, great. There is a question from Susan, on elections. How can the Board of Canvassers get away with only reviewing 750 petition signatures to determine if there is a valid signature to put the candidate's name on the ballot?
That's probably
Good
more of like
question.
a, yeah, I was gonna say a Secretary of
Um,
State.
I just had a friend who was running for judge,
Mhm.
and I forget how many signatures he had to get. And I just talked to him recently, and I said, "How's the campaign going?" And he says, he says, I didn't make it. I says, "What do you mean you didn't make it?" He says, "They threw out 700 of my signatures, so I'm 400 short."
Hmm.
Oh,
And I told him, I said, when I was working with Right to Life of Michigan, because I was the president of Right to Life of St. Clair County for 12 years on the Prop 3 proposal, when we had to get all those petitions out to get it
right.
on the ballot.
Yeah.
Okay, what we found was that if there was one invalid signature on the petition, they threw
Mhm.
out the whole petition. So 10 signatures went out. So we knew we had, if we needed 350,000, we had to get 500,000.
Right.
So luckily we were able to get it on the ballot, and different proposals and things like that, like parent involvement for abortion, and to get abortion out of our um, uh, not paid for by our taxes, and so on and so
Right,
forth. So
Medicaid,
they
yeah,
did a lot.
Medicaid funded, right?
Medicaid
Yeah,
funding, yes.
We fought Medicaid funded abortion. The people had a referendum and it was soundly defeated. And again, that's why, majorities matter because the minute we lose a majority, that they're going to bring that issue back, for sure. We know that. The good news is on election, like to your point on signatures, citizens only vote, that ballot petition effort. They submitted, I think I just heard this today, 750,000 signatures are waiting on the Secretary of State to approve. They only needed to submit 350,000.
Wow.
Mhm.
So, well, it's hard to have these ballot referendums, but the question on 750, I know that Mr. Reban has gone to the Supreme Court to ask them to review that requirement, and I'm not sure where that is
It
today.
was
I don't
thrown
know.
out.
It
The
was thrown
Supreme
out.
Court did not take up the issue. Susan, I can try to find an article that might try to explain, because I have this stuff in my head, but to try to articulate it. So if you want to send us an email, and we need to wrap up here, our
Yeah.
email is ctvmichigan.org. Susan, if you want to just shoot us an email and say, I'm the gal that would like some insight, CTV is happy to point to resources. So we'd be glad to send you a couple articles that might explain that.
Representative Pavlov, thank you so
Yes,
much.
such an
Really
honor.
enjoyed having you on, and I believe I can give your email to folks. It's your name,
Absolutely,
yeah, Joseph
yes.
Pavlov,
Joseph G.
Pavlov,
Yeah,
right?
Joseph
Joseph
Pablo.
G. Pavlo,
Okay.
my middle
Oh,
initial, Joseph G. Pavlo at gmail.com, all small
okay.
letters.
Okay, that will go right to
Awesome.
him if it's his Gmail. Thank you, sir. Thank
Yes,
you for serving. I'm glad you're running again. And we're just blessed to have you in our state legislature. And hopefully we'll be sending other good people to join you in this coming year as well.
yes, we need to flip the Senate, and we need a conservative governor.
Yeah, that would be
Boy,
great.
wouldn't that make a difference? Yeah.
One other thing on education, Amy put together a terrific one pager on the kind of the nuts and bolts. I think Amy, the how to run or what do I do, where do I
Sure.
look? And we'll share that with everyone on our follow-up email tomorrow. So you can you don't have to have taken a million notes from Matt. Matt Wilkes was on before you, representative, and did a terrific job on running for these school board seats and what to do. So we are at the 8 o'clock hour, and we always commit to getting you off and on your way at 8 o'clock. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Can I just leave with a message of hope?
Yes,
Okay. This is
please.
something that's guided me for the last 40 years. It's whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon must inevitably come to pass. We are going to win.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir. Thank
God
you,
bless you
everyone,
for
for
what you're doing.
joining us. Thank you, and
Yes.
you as well. And God bless each of you for being on. Please mark your calendar, tell a friend for our next one in July, the second Tuesday of the month. We're already planning the agenda. Our goal is to bring you quality content and hopefully create a conversation of hope and where you can ask questions. But as Matt so eloquently said, that you're not alone. Please just continue to talk to a neighbor and a friend that together. Jesus didn't need the whole world to change the world. He just needed 12 people. And so we had well over 12 tonight. So we're on our way to making some incredible impact. So blessings to you all, and we will be in touch soon.
Praise the
Thank
Lord.
you. Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Bless you.